The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. Giants baseball. Listen up. When the Giants come to town, it's bye-bye, baby. Every time the chips are down, it's bye-bye, baby. History is the making and has a big mark. And life does mark if you're a fan of Giants baseball. Remember that? KSFO. Way back in the day. Micael, Duca.
I heard that as recently as this week at the ballpark.
Really? The only thing they have when you're at Candlestick Park. Now,
right.
Do you miss Candlestick? Is there anything about it that you really miss? I'm just curious. We've been at AT&T for, 10 years now?
Oh, Ralph, we've been at AT&T for 19 years now. This is the 19th season there.
I meant to say 20, but, 19. Wow. Why? Oh, my God. I remember they were building the park, and they had just laid out home plate. And we drove by there, parked the car, everything was open, went out, stood where home plate was, got back in the car, and wow! And it's been easy 23 years since that. Incredible. Where does the time go? He asked rhetorically.
Well, it went into 3 rings. That's where it went.
Yeah, not bad. And you know what I was thinking about the other day? They built the team before they paid off the debt completely, if I'm not mistaken. And, that's a good thing. Now that the debt is paid off, it all goes back basically into staying a contender every year. That's the way I look at it. There's no question about their revenue and their revenue sources. They're incredibly consistent. And you got to say hats off to Larry Baer. Am I correct?
You do, and, I have not looked this up and done the math, but it is my suspicion that the Giants have now drawn more fans to AT&T Park than they did to Candlestick in the aggregate.
Wow, that's like 40 years. Literally 40 years. Wouldn't surprise me. And the revenue has gone up in all of baseball. The TV money has increased. What an investment. I wonder what Bob Lorry and Bud Herseth, Bob Lorry is still with us. I think Bud Herseth passed away. But they, at one time, bought the team from Stoneham at such a ridiculously low price that it's shocking what's happened fiscally to sports in general, or sports and baseball specifically. Sports in general, baseball specifically.
Well, there are some clouds on the horizon. I'm not sure, but that this isn't the last massive television contract that they're going to get. As the viewing audience fragments and they watch games on MLB TV and they watch games on Game Day and they watch games on local channels and on national channels and on Facebook and on Twitter, it's becoming more and more difficult for the TV channels to capture enough audience to sustain these very high contract prices that they're paying. So that gravy train may slow down. I don't think it's going away, but it may slow down in the future. And it will be interesting to see whether or not the era of good feelings in labor peace is able to extend to a time when they may have to ask players not so much to tighten their belts, but to slow down the pace which they are loosening them.
Okay, I understand that. You can't say tighten your belt to somebody, offer them $12 million instead of 15. Tighten your belt, son. that kind of thing. But it could very well happen. And I wonder if this year's negotiation wasn't a start of that. I asked Wayne Unger, another podcaster on our network, whether or not he thought it was a collusion or just an overcorrection. What's your response to that?
Well, I don't think there was collusion because players were getting signed throughout that entire period and are still being signed. Melky Cabrera was just signed a couple of days ago. And no matter how tightly you may think owners collude, when the opportunity pops up to get themselves a talent that may change the outcome of their season, they're going to do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, then you have the soft cap coming into it, and I wonder if Marvin Miller is turning over in his grave over that.
Well, probably, but Marvin was never one to rest easy.
That's good, very good point. Very good point.
I don't see that the soft cap is a major problem here. I see baseball's bigger problem being tanking going on. I have no evidence that it is other than circumstantial evidence, but at some point, the old saying, if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck and it's shedding feathers on your lawn, it might well be a duck.
Okay. Now, it isn't the players that are throwing it or it's the management deciding which players perform, correct?
Which players perform and where they perform. Yeah, it's one thing to say, okay, we're going to rebuild, and to possibly look at your farm system and say, well, we really, we don't have enough. The cupboard's kind of bare. We need to go out and move a couple of our blue chip players for a dozen blue chip prospects.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, Buster Olney just suggested this week that the Giants ought to do that with Madison Bumgarner because, of course, they have a completely barren farm system that has only produced Chris Stratton and Mac Williamson so far this year, and also Chris
that's a man we have not spoken about. Mac Williams. Let's digress for just 1 second. There's a guy who's made a splash.
Well, fourth time's the charm, apparently. He had been labeled a 4A player, one of those guys who tears it up AAA and overperforms there and then gets to the major leagues and is totally overmatched by pitch selection and major league breaking balls. Well,
a Rocky Nelson of his time.
Right. But that's no longer true, apparently. We have never seen him come up before and have the kind of week that he's had this week. And it's instructive to remember, you have to be a little bit of a freak to know this, but he's on a hitting streak that started on opening day in Sacramento. He hasn't played a game without getting a hit yet.
Whoa. Has he talked about what's turned it around for him?
Absolutely. absolutely. What's turned it around for him is that he completely remade his swing in the off season. He went to the guy in Southern California who remade Justin Turner's swing. And I think the results are pretty evident, and I think that that guy whose name I should know, and I'm sure I will know like the back of my hand pretty soon if he does it for another player, is looking at his income potential is certainly every bit as good as Mac Williamson's at this point. I think he's put himself in a position where he's going to be sought out by a number of players who can't seem to quite make the jump into the big leagues.
Okay. Is he a fielder? I saw him get the ball back into the infield very quickly, very quick release. So I know his arm's okay, especially in left field. That won't be a problem. Does he have good range? Good instincts?
Well, let's put it this way. He's way better than Greg Luzinski, but he's probably not as good a fielder as Andrew McCutcheon.
Okay, somewhere in between. How is Pence? What's the timetable for him? And
he's supposed to start a rehab assignment in Sacramento either tonight or tomorrow. I've forgotten which.
Okay. Could Williamson's progress mark Pence as one of those players that the Giants might consider moving?
Yes. He is a player that they might consider moving, but the question is, what can you get for him? Madison Bumgarner has another year, a team option at $12 million. And you could probably get an entire contenders farm system if you traded Bumgarner, since he has the rest of this year plus another year under team control at just a ridiculously low price. I mean, he's going to go out there and give you 225 outstanding innings for the price of a middle reliever. So
how is the fan base going to respond if they trade him? Unfavorably, but if the right parting words are said by both sides, and if there's sort of a tacit agreement that we're going to go after him in free agency, and we're only doing this like the Yankees did with Aroldis Chapman to build up a cadre of young players. And boy, did that ever work. So you got to give them a lot of
look
credit.
at Gleyber Torres. I mean, they got Gleyber Torres in that deal, and
he turns out to be as good a prospect as they have. And while we're talking about the Yankees, I just got to say, Didi Gregorius has surpassed anything I thought he would ever be. He is just really developed with all the pressure in the world taking over for Jeter.
Boy, I got to tell you, I remember him in Arizona, and I remember watching him for at-bat after at-bat after at-bat, looking like he had never even seen the game played before. He was so out of water there. But players develop. And, now I have to say that Didi Gregorius may well be the best draft pick I made this year in my fantasy league. And I picked Shohei Ohtani with my first pick, but I got Gregorius in like the 5th round.
Nice. I won't even tell you how bad. I'm in 9th place out of 12 in my Yahoo Fantasy League. If anybody can screw up,
too many Mets.
No, actually, yes. In this case, I picked up Harvey right out of spring training and cut the kid that just pitched the no-hitter for the A's to get Harvey, who's been long gone for my team. I picked up somebody and dropped Matt Chapman because I was I was rich in third baseman, and just didn't think he would develop quite as quickly as he has. That was a stupid mistake. I'm going nowhere this year. The Los Buckaroos. What's the name of your team? Your fantasy team?
My team is the San Pablo Bay Brutes.
Oh, okay. And but I still, I'm in nice place. I still live and die with them. Go ahead.
I have actually had league members ask me what a Bruce is.
Okay.
What a Bruce is? Just say the whole team name rapidly. You'll get it.
Okay. Say it rapidly one more time for me.
San Pablo Bay Bruce.
San Pablo Bay Bruce. San Pablo Bay Bruce. It's going to take me a while. I'm a slow Ralph.
Well, I suppose I could have called them the San Pablo Garrigs.
Okay. I got you. You're a Giant fan at heart. If you weren't a Giant fan, and I might ask you, what team do you root for in the American League?
Well, to the extent that I root for anybody, you have to remember that I do work in the office of the commissioner, so I root for good baseball and I root for my local teams to be in the postseason so I can keep getting nice assignments, official scoring.
Okay.
But I really do enjoy it when the A's do well. When I was younger and living in Southern California before I moved up here after college, I was probably more of an Angels fan than I was an A's fan. I've reached that point in my life, Ralph, where I like to root for good stories. After the Giants won the World Championship in 2014, I was probably the biggest Kansas City Royal fan on the planet in 2015. I really wanted them to go out and get their ring. I knew their window was not very wide, and I knew that the Giants had really gotten kind of fortunate in swiping a ring from them in 2014, and I was very pleased when they got their ring in 2015.
Good. Sometimes you root for the managers to do well. Sometimes a particular player. That's the nice thing about baseball is that overall you root for the success of the sport, and you hope it can be passed on intact without the basic changes, the rule changes that they're considering. For instance, they're talking, and they have a trial run in the minors on this, which means that there's some serious thinking about in extra innings putting a guy on second base to start things off, or some variation of that. I think it's horrible. I think it skews the record books. Who scored the most runs in baseball? You have to go, well, it was Ricky Henderson, but he didn't have the advantage of starting out on second base. And how do you give the pitcher? How do you charge the earned run to the pitcher if it isn't the pitcher's fault that he got on in the first place?
Well, let me tell you how the rule actually works.
Okay.
First thing is, the first guy that is put on second base, if he scores, he's unearned. That's in the rule.
Okay.
He's not charged to the pitcher. So if it's a 2-2 game and it winds up 3-2, it's an unearned run. If it winds up 5-2, then the last two runs may well be earned. The fundamental
but that would be like anything. Of course, they'd be earned like any other earned run.
Right.
Okay.
But does the
runner get credit for the run scored in the record book?
He has to. You have to account for the runs. The total runs by the team has to add up to the total runs by the players.
So he could, in essence, score a run with not even walking. How do they get him on?
It's worse than that. It's worse than that. Do you know who the runner will be?
No.
The runner will be the person who made the last out of the prior inning. So you're in essence, your failure gives you an opportunity to lead the team in runs scored. I don't.
Bat 121.
Yeah, I don't see this happening in major leagues. I will be shocked if it comes to the major leagues. I understand why they're doing it in the minor leagues. In the minor leagues, development is more important. You've got players making between $600 and $5,000 a month. You're not going to go out and risk somebody's career by having them pitch 7 innings out of the bullpen in the 14th inning because your team can't score. So, they have smaller rosters. They only have 23-man rosters or 22-man rosters, depending on what level they're at. And, I can understand rationale for this in the minor leagues. I don't understand any rationale for it in the major leagues. And it's just nothing about it makes sense to me in the major league. If you're worried about overtaxing players, there's a really simple solution to that. There's already a taxi squad in baseball. Most people didn't realize this, but Mac Williamson came up and spent a day on the taxi squad waiting to see if they were going to DL Hunter Pence or not. There is a taxi squad. When you do double headers, you're allowed to add a 26-man to your roster for the second game and swap him in for someone who you swap out, and that will obviously be the starter of the first game that you swap out. There's no reason that baseball can't do something like this. Football does it. Basketball does it. Hockey does it. You have, in hockey, you've got 23 guys that dress and 3 that are scratched for each game, more or less. Sometimes it's even more than 3 that are scratched for each game. And they can be healthy scratches. You decide that for this game, I want 5 guys in the bullpen,
coach's
5 guys
decision
on the bench. Yeah.
CD.
Yeah, and I think it could actually lend a lot of intrigue and strategy to the game because you decide, I've got Bumgarner going today or I've got Kershaw going today, so I only need 4 guys in the bullpen. So I'm going to have a 6-man bench today.
So in today's game, one can have an extra player or 2 available and make a game-time decision, or is this in the works?
This would be my solution to the issue that they're trying to solve by starting a runner on
There is
second
no
base in the 10th
taxi
inning.
squad as we know it, other than that double header.
There is, but there is a taxi squad. But the only effect that it has is that a minor league player gets major league service time without being on the active roster. He gets to work out with the team. He gets to be present, but he can't be in uniform on the bench during the game because he's not on the active squad. I would propose that baseball move itself to a 27 or 28-man roster with 25 active players for each game.
Well, here's a question for you. He's not activated, but he's getting service time. So theoretically, a player can qualify for the medical benefits of the pension plan without not only just get into one game, he doesn't even have to get into that one game. Am I correct?
I don't know when the medical benefits kick in.
I thought it was with one listing in the game. If you're in a game like Fowler last year is entitled to, had he never played another game, he'd be entitled to medical insurance at the going rate for the rest of his life.
Well, I can tell you that they have a pretty good medical plan. I know some retired players, but I also know that some of those retired players struggle to make the monthly payments for the plan because it's a very expensive plan. It's a Cadillac type plan. And they're paying in some instances close to they're paying in some instances $1,000 a month.
Oh my God. Holy Toledo. Having sold insurance in the 70s, when a plan for $15 a day, $15 a month, you could have your $35 a day hospital bill paid. That's what the average cost to go to the hospital was in the 70s, $35 a day.
I know. When you and I were born, our parents paid $150 to $200 for our delivery. And that usually included 3 days stay in the hospital in those days. Now having a child costs you about $12,000, and if you're lucky, you get to stay in the hospital until the baby breathes.
Right. If you're lucky, right? Oh, wow. And you say, well, inflation. Well, inflation only goes so far. You don't pay 40 times more for your dry cleaning than you paid in 1970. So why should you for your medical care? One wonders.
Well, there is the argument that your medical care is significantly more sophisticated now than it was in the 70s. That survival rates for things like cancer and heart disease are significantly higher and longer than they were 50 years ago.
Yeah, but if it's only made available to the very rich, you're not doing it as far as I'm concerned. If the poor and the middle class can't afford it, it's not working. People in this country are afraid of the word socialism. That, taking care of everyone, making sure that everyone is sheltered, everyone is fed, and everyone has medical benefits. If you don't have to redistribute the wealth all the way. You could just take care. You could find some way of taking care of humanity, especially veterans. I live in Alameda, California, which is right across the bay right across the moat from Oakland, and I took a drive through Oakland the other day. The encampments, the homeless encampments, it's frightening. It's like a third world country in parts of the city of Oakland. I'm sure San Francisco is exactly the same way. We got to find
as is San Jose.
Yeah. There has to be some drastic changes in this country. And I'm not being political in any way. Both parties are not doing it. The system is not working. The system of Congress people being controlled by lobbyists and only interested in the next election. And I'm an old guy. I'm worried about my future grandkids if I have any. It's not a pretty picture. But
I hear you. I cannot remember which old politician it was who said you measure a country by how it cares for its old and infirm.
That sounds like it really sounds like Franklin Delano Roosevelt, if ideologically, but we've come a long way from Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and it isn't a positive way. Absolutely correct, sir. Let's get back to baseball a little bit. Little update on the Giants, their situation right now.
Well, put it this way. So if they take 3 out of 4 from the Dodgers, they will finish this stretch of, I believe, 28 games at 500. This is the most difficult 28-game stretch based on last year's records. It's the most difficult 28-game stretch that any team in Major League Baseball faces this year. 10 games against the Dodgers, 6 games against the Diamondbacks, 3 games against Washington. Everybody said, if they could just come out of that at 500, it'd be great, but they have no chance of finishing that at 500 without Bumgarner, without Cueto, without Samardzija. Well, they have a chance. 3 out of 4 against the Dodgers is not easy, but they don't have to face Clayton Kershaw this weekend, so it's possible. And even if they split with the Dodgers and wind up, at 13 and 15, I think they'll take it. I think they'll take it because they're going to be in a position to launch themselves against teams that at least last year had much less successful records.
Well, do you feel it's an upswing?
Right now?
Yeah, right now. Do you feel the season is gone? Of course, based on last year's record. But given their acquisitions, expecting high things out of spring training, do you feel it's going? You feel that they're treading water until they get their pitchers back, and you think it's going well along those lines?
I do.
Okay.
I think that Hunter Strickland has turned the corner mentally and now considers himself capable and appropriate pitching in the late innings.
Right.
That can only help. I think Tony Watson has been shockingly good. Every time he takes the mound, my first question is, how did the Dodgers not even bother to offer this guy a new contract? I mean, it's just unbelievable to me.
Yeah. It is nice getting him from the Dodgers, too. That's always...
If Will Smith is able to come back and perform at the level that he has in the past, people forget, he's got that unassuming look-alike name of another really nice guy in the movies. But
yes.
people forget that he can throw 96. Now, if he's able to come back from his Tommy John surgery, like many pitchers have come back from Tommy John surgery, he may be able to throw 97 by the end of the year because the elbow is stronger after getting the double wrap ligament surgery that Tommy John is now, and guys can actually push it a little harder. Plus, he's not experiencing the pain and discomfort that he had that would lead up to that kind of injury. So, that's a couple of really, really big names. Even if you don't expect anything more out of Melanson, if you are able to add a situational lefty into the picture to take up the slack and you let Watson be your setup guy, or if Smith becomes your setup guy and you let Watson become your situational guy, either way, you give Josh Osich the opportunity to go down, pitch more often in the minor leagues, and maybe be able to contribute a little better when he comes back. I mean, he had an absolutely spotless spring, and the minute the season started, it all went to hell. And so we know he's capable of it, and he just needs to get the confidence back. But if you tie all of those things together, and then you add Madison Bumgarner into a pitching rotation that has discovered Chris Stratton.
Yes.
Now, I mean, legitimately, Jeff Samardzija now becomes your fifth starter. I mean, you've got Bumgarner and Cueto, who are two absolute aces at the top of their game, at the top of the rotation. And then you throw in Stratton, who's got an ERA of 2. and your fourth starter is Ty Block, and your fifth starter is Samardzija, I'll stand that rotation up against any in baseball.
Right. And we haven't really lauded the accomplishments of that double play combination. Crawford and Panic are so good together and so solid. It's nice.
If Joe Panic never makes another play, double play he started in Game 7 of the 2014 World Series will remain the greatest play I've ever seen a second baseman make.
Whoa.
I was there, and I still don't believe what I saw.
Okay. I will look for that on YouTube, and
Oh, my goodness. It was a diving play up the middle, and essentially, almost while he was still in midair, he flipped the ball with his glove only to Crawford to start a double play that kept the Royals from tying the game against Bumgarner. It was that first inning when Bumgarner came in and put on the first two guys.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That was how he got out of it.
I'm going to look for that. But day in and day out, they're both solid as rocks.
Absolutely.
And how about Belt? We talk about he is the most streaky guy. We've talked about that. What causes him to be on the ball enough to foul off 21 pitches? Now, I don't think there's an official record book. I know Luke Appling used to do that sort of stuff. 21 pitchers? I mean, that's like...
it was a 21 pitch at bat. He fouled off 16. He fouled off 13 with 2 strikes. And the actual recording of pitches and pitches per at bat is only about 30 years old. So that's as far back as we can go definitively. Mm-hmm. It is highly unlikely, however, that anybody has had an at bat any longer than that. There are a number of players, Ralph, who have not seen 21 pitches in a game this year.
In a 9-inning game, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think if I remember correctly, Belt saw 32 pitches that day. I mean, think about it.
And you talk about intangibles to work a pitcher, to tire a pitcher, and which causes you to get weaker all the way down. You bring in a guy that you wouldn't have brought in a situation you wouldn't want him in, all those things. The intangibles of baseball. And do you think he can take that sort of thing to a negotiation setting and make money? That's not what they look for. They look for home runs in today's day and age. He's to be really appreciated for that.
Yeah, and to further amplify what you just said, Berrios in that game became the first pitcher, as far back as they can check this in the records, became the first pitcher to throw as many as 80 pitches and leave a scoreless game in the third inning.
Whoa. So he's directly responsible for getting him out of the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was laughing. I was talking to my crew about it, and I said, somewhere around the 12th pitch, I just say screw it, and I hit him.
Right between the numbers.
Yep. But with regard to Belt, I had the good fortune to run into Dusty Baker in the hallway the other day, and we sat down in a booth.
In case anybody doesn't know, what capacity? Is he's the special advisor?
Yeah, he's a special advisor, and I asked him how he felt about, if it felt strange not being in uniform, and he said, well, if I were in uniform, I would not be able to go watch Darren play every weekend. So,
where is he playing now?
So Darren plays at Cal. He's one of the stars at Cal.
Oh, wow. Wow, little boy, I think of J.T. Snow taking him out of harm's way against the California Angels, who were then so named. I also think of Dusty getting the ball and flipping it and all of that. But I think of Dusty Baker as being the best hitting coach the Giants ever had. I thought he was terrific.
Well, and I asked him about that. I said, is it difficult for you to sit up here in a booth and watch these guys hit and not go down and help them out? And he said, well, I'm able to deal with that because I'm sort of a de facto hitting coach for Cal. So he's able to suppress it a little bit there. But we talked about Belt. I asked him, what do you see in Belt? And he put his fist right at the bottom of his breastbone, right where your diaphragm is. And he says, if he could just learn to lay off these pitches right here, he'd be incredible. And I said, well, remember, it took Matty, 1,500 at-bats to learn to lay off the breaking ball outside? And Dusty just started to chuckle. He said, yeah, on a trip to the minor leagues to get him mentally ready to accept what his hitting coach was saying.
Yeah, sometimes I can think of Willie McCovey going down to the minors early on in his career and coming back a better hitter.
Yeah, it's hard to think of him as coming back a better hitter. If you remember his rookie year, it was pretty amazing. He won the Rookie of the Year, and I think he only played in 43 games.
Right. I remember those 2 triples off Robin Roberts to start it all out.
2 triples as part of a 4-for-4 day.
Yeah.
Yeah, he could run. He could run.
I was thinking that he could go. He was like Dave Kingman in the sense that he could go from first to third, get up ahead of steam with those long legs, the strides of both of those guys, and make hayway. I'll tell you what else I was thinking about with Dave Kingman. He starts out as a pitcher in college and signed and never pitched in the majors as far as I know.
But he did. He did pitch in the majors. Dave Kingman is the answer to one of the great trivia questions of all time, which is, what pitcher who appeared in at least 5 games as a reliever led his team in home runs one year?
That would be Dave Kingman, I guess.
That would be Dave Kingman, yeah.
That, obviously. Was that in 71?
Might have been. He 70 or 71. He was also, like you said, he was the guy who had triple speed once he got a head of steam up. But yeah, it is interesting. Dave Kingman is also the answer to the question, who was the best pitcher on the USC Trojans in the mid-'60s. And many people will tell you reflexively George Thomas Seaver, but that's not the correct answer.
Kingman had more wins. Okay. He also hit a home run, fooled by a pitch, hits a home run off a Met pitcher in the same doubleheader. I mean, this home run went to straightaway center field, hit it with one hand. That's how immense power this guy had. And it was the doubleheader in which Ed Halicki pitched his no-hitter against the Mets. And I was
Which
there
was
to see it.
the only no-hitter I ever saw until Matt Cain's perfect game.
We were both at the ballpark that same historic day. That's very interesting. I've never seen a no-hitter besides that. And you've never seen a no-hitter, only two no-hitters with all the games you've scored?
3,460 games between no-hitters.
Whoa.
I was famous for being the guy who was there when they were lost with 2 outs in the 9th inning. David Cohn, Scott Garrelts, Kurt Schilling. I've seen 4 of them lost with 2 outs in the 9th inning. Now, subsequently, after the Cain no-hitter, it seems to, or a perfect game, it seems to have opened the floodgates. I mean, I missed the Jonathan Sanchez game. 1999, I attended 82 of the 83 games played at Candlestick Park. The only game I was not able to go to, Kevin Brown no-hit the Giants, and should have had a perfect game, but his nasty temper, he got so mad at Marvin Bernard for trying to bunt to break up the no-hitter with 2 outs in the 9th inning that he hit him intentionally. Otherwise, he'd have had a perfect game. I didn't get to see that. I didn't get to see Jonathan Sanchez's no-hitter. I didn't get to see Dallas Braden's perfect game. It was the day my son was getting married in Oregon. But
how about the no-hitter pitched against the Red Sox the other day by the A's?
I was there. I was also there for Timmy's no-hitter at AT&T. So, like I said, since Matt Cain, it's kind of opened floodgates for me.
Okay.
I've stopped being the bad luck charm.
Now, you knew the number of games between no-hitters. What's the number of official scored games by Micael Duca up to the moment?
I don't know.
Okay.
That I do not know. It's going to be somewhere in the vicinity of 350, but I don't know.
350.
Yeah, we have 6 scorers in the Bay Area, so if you do the math,
No, I mean,
get about,
how many in your lifetime, in your career? How many have you called? How many?
About 350. We only get about 25 to 28 per year, plus postseason if you get it. And I've been doing it for 14 years, so it's going to be in the vicinity of 350.
Oh, okay. I thought you were scoring literally every day, every game of the season.
Oh no. There are 6 highly qualified guys doing it in the Bay Area. Art Santo-Domingo, who was the Giants' PR director in the 1960s.
I remember that. I remember him very well for that.
Jim Young, who was the A's PR director in the early 2000s. Chris Toms, a young man whose father is the commissioner of the Cape Cod League and who ran the official scores for the Cape Cod League for a number of years. Myself, and I'm leaving people. Chuck Dibdahl, who's done it for 35 years. And I'm leaving someone. David Feldman.
David Feldman was stats guy for a long time, if I remember correctly.
Still is. He's basically the A's historian, and also does a lot of TV work. He produces a number of broadcasts for Pac-12 Network and for Comcast.
Okay. You're in a great baseball family, my friend.
Well, I'm extremely fortunate to be where I am. You know, for a kid who grew up running the scorebook for Pasadena High, I'm, in an awfully lofty position, all things being considered. I'm still not sure how I got here. It always amuses me. People say, "How do you become an official scorer?" And I tell them, I haven't the slightest idea. I truly don't. I just
I'll
they
tell
called
you what
one day and
misled
said,
me.
"Will you
You
do
were
this?"
working practically every day in spring training, so they don't send a whole bunch of scores down there, do they?
Well, I was working every day in spring training, mostly learning the clock in case the pitch clock was implemented this year, and doing work for MLB.com. But there is some discussion. In spring training, little known fact, it's the PR directors for the teams that are actually the official scorers. And there is some discussion about possibly seeing if enough scorers can get to spring training to have real official scorers to the games in springtime, because PR directors would really like to get out of that business. If you think that there's pressure on a scorer during the regular season over an earned run or an unearned run, think of the pressure on a scorer over, if I don't get that hit, if you call that an error and I don't get that hit, I may not make the team.
Right.
And you got to go down.
Equal pressure from the pitcher's side. If I give up the hit, I may not make the team.
Well, yeah, but the pitcher's probably going to be on the other side. In any of these circumstances, you've only got one PR director. The home PR director is doing the scoring. So that's going to alternate back and forth for both sides. But the point is, you can't do your job as a media relations director in earning the trust of the players and getting them to do things the way you ask them to do them if they view you as an impediment to their career.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, are they talking about this? Are they going to vote on it? What stage of development?
Let me just say this. I cannot even really tell you who will make this decision because I don't know. And I don't know who they are. I know that the people that I work with in spring training have broached the idea to the PR directors, and they were almost unanimously in favor of it. Whether or not that goes anywhere is a whole different issue because it comes down to money. Your official scores, we get paid decently, but we don't get paid so much that we can, it doesn't make much economic sense to fly to Arizona for 4 games and pay
Michael,
resort rates in spring training.
Michael, we are absolutely up against the time. We're going to do it next week, same time, same bat channel. Thank you for being here. It's San Francisco Giants Baseball, Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm Ralph Tyko, the weak link of it all. The host is Michael Duca. I stand informed yet again, Michael. Thank you again.
Always a pleasure to be here, Ralph. See you next week.
Be healthy along the way, and we'll be back. Thank you, everybody. Adios.